Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday Talks with Greg. My name is Greg Jamiel, and I want to welcome you to today's talk because it's Tuesday. Now, I want to go over a few housekeeping things for you first. I do have a few openings coming up at the end of this week, and most of my openings are available for next week. So if you'd like to book a private session, you're more than able to at gregoryjamiel.com. Oops. We just got a big gust of wind who just shut my door. So you can go to gregoryjamiel.com to book your private session with me. And on my website, you will also find different workshops that you can purchase as well. We also have the upcoming Intro to Ayurveda workshop coming up in just a few weeks. So I'll be talking more and posting more about that in the days to come. Now, for those of you watching on Facebook, I'd love for you to hit the like button on our page. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button and ring that little bell so that you're notified the next time I post a video. For everyone watching, I just want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And I have a really beautiful topic that I want to share about. And the reason is, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing different people that I consider to be family members with all of you, my other family members. And each one of these people that I'll be interviewing has a different story to share. Next week, my best friend, my sister, my roommate, Kelly Rush, is going to be talking to us about her journey with breast cancer, things that she experienced, how she felt healing through that situation, and where she is now as she's grown past that. And so she was really excited to come and talk to everyone about that. It's a big topic that a lot of people have experience with, or at least know someone who has an experience with breast cancer. And so she will be an invaluable resource, and I am thrilled to be able to introduce you to her, someone who's very, very close to me. So hello everyone. Deborah, how you doing? Meredith, good to see you. Jim, of course. Jim was just in the hospital, so good to see you, Jim, back home, and that feels really good for my heart to know that you're back there. So good to see you all. Patricia, welcome. So for today's topic, what I'm going to be speaking about is different ways that we can become more supported to those around us, those people that we consider our family members. And I want to break this down in a couple of different ways. Um, Over the past couple of months, we've been doing our Balancing the Chakras course. And so we've been focusing a lot about the different chakras. And one area of the chakras that a lot of people were kind of focusing on was the root chakra. And so today, I want to talk a little bit about family and that relationship to our root chakra. So, in the chakra system, for those of you who are new to this, there are energy centers in our body, starting off at the base of our spine, which is called the root chakra, and goes all the way up our body, from our pelvic area to our stomach to our heart, throat, eyes, well, brow, and then our crown. And each of these areas kind of relate around a certain age of development, and they can influence how we live our life in adulthood based off of how we were raised as a younger child. So, the root chakra is the home of our basic survival needs. It's our finances, it's our family unit, it's all of the things that really kind of make us feel safe and secure. And, over the past couple of years, we have gone through a very unsecure time with the pandemic and different marches and different political things going on. So a lot of us have felt a sense of unrest and maybe even ungrounded in our own culture. And this can really kind of impact how we live with our root chakra and how we relate to others. And adding on again that pandemic, it's like we were then separated from a lot of people. We were separated from those we love. And so it really kind of took a toll on our root chakra. And now, around the world, as things are opening back up again, we're beginning to reintegrate and kind of commingle again with our friends and family and seeing each other after so long. It feels so good and so wonderful. I actually bought my tickets home to go back home for Christmas. My family's all in Rhode Island, and I'm out here in Seattle. So it feels really good to know that this Christmas I'll be going back home to see my family after not seeing them for a while. So hello, Gail. Hi, Heidi. Good to see you guys. Hi, Linda. So today, I want to talk about that role of family. Now, it really feels comforting to know that we have a family unit, right? Maybe some parents and some siblings or aunts and uncles, people who have been around us for most of our life and who we feel really know us more than our friends may know us. And that's a really comforting thought. And I'm really glad for those of us that have that experience with our different family members. There are other things, though, that kind of separate that bond. We may have differences of opinion with our family. Like for me, my parents have both passed away, so there's death will kind of sever some different family connections. And again, as I just said, I live in Seattle and my whole family lives in Rhode Island. So distance may also cause kind of a separation of family attachment and family connection. What a lot of us do is create these families with our friends. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about that difference between a relative and a family member. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But it's interesting, when we were going through this chakra course, a lot of the things that came up for people, a lot of the, I don't want to say roadblocks, but just issues in people's past had a lot to do with how they were raised and the programming that they were taught from their family unit. And so it's really interesting as we grow older, and I'm sure all of you understand this too, where you have different different friends who have become that role of family. I mean, for me, living in, I lived in Arizona and then Portland and now Seattle. And so my family has always been in Rhode Island. I've really had to find other people that I connect with, people that I fit in with, people that accept me for who I am and that can support me and that I can support when things get tough in life. So this is not anything new. And I just kind of wanted to have this talk be able to um, put some finer details on these different definitions, because a lot of the things that came up in this chakra course were beliefs about our family that we feel we have no control over or we can't change. And so I thought, well, if I just kind of share the way that I see the different family versus relatives, it may help people be able to put some perspective into their own family. And so for me, growing up, we've heard these different sayings that blood is thicker than water and family first. It's the family is more important than anything. And as I just shared, there are certain circumstances in our lives, from death or moving or disagreements, that's just not possible. Maybe we just don't agree with our family all the time, and that is okay. And that's something that I want to make sure that we're all aware of. Disagreeing with our family or going on two different paths is okay. Just because we were born into a family doesn't mean that we are locked into that family and cannot adapt and change our relationships to each member in that specific family. I think that's something interesting too, where we have different levels of closeness, even in our own family units. Like my siblings, now that my parents have passed on, my siblings and I are very, very close. But my mom was the youngest of five, or excuse me, the oldest of five, and my dad was the youngest of 13. So growing up, we had a huge family on both my mom and dad's side. And there are some of my dad's family, my dad being the youngest of those 13 kids, some of the older brothers' children were older than I was too. So there was a separation there in age that I didn't really know a lot of those older cousins, and they've also moved on too. So it just happens that way. Life just kind of happens where we go on our path, and yes, we can always rely on our family. But what I want to get at is that they are our relatives. And I wrote down the definition of this. A relative is someone who is related to you by blood or marriage. Family definition is a group of people usually living together as a unit. So there is a big difference between, it may sound the same, and we call our relatives our family because they are, but we also have that really sacred group of friends that have become our family over the years. And that's something that is powerful and unique and miraculous in this world of so many people when we're able to find that group and really connect with them. So if anyone has any comments to share, write them in there. I see some people are already writing in. So Heidi, let's see here. Sometimes it's people who are not family that can become as important as family. Heidi, that's absolutely true. And that's what I was just sharing a moment ago, that the necessity that a lot of us have who have moved away from our family, it's like I felt that when I moved to Phoenix. That was my first big move. I needed to have someone to connect to. I got really lonely and homesick, and I missed my family back home. So it was really wonderful for me to be able to meet my friends at work and to be able to socialize with them and really go do fun things and just do the things that you do that really help you develop that kinship and that family bond. Deborah says, I'm literally on vacation with my two best girlfriends since eighth grade. So 41 years, and they are my sisters. They know me the best. Maybe part of my soul group. Deborah, absolutely. And that's the thing. We have these things called soul sisters or a soul community. And that really is true. I have a bunch too. And like I said, next week you'll meet my sister Kelly, who we call each other sister, but we're not related by blood, but we are family. And I think that brings us to another topic that's really interesting. It's important to remember how we use our words. And so when we say that people are our family or when we say that they're our brother or sister, it's important to really mean that. And, I kind of came out of the yoga community a few years ago. And in that community, everyone is very much speaking that way. Oh, my brother, my sister, my brother. And when you really think about it, I just want to be like, do you support them really like your brother or sister? Would you do anything for them? Because if you do, that's fantastic. But sometimes those words get used without the real potency behind them. So just something to think about when you're saying that there. Linda, let's see here. Totally for me. My mother died when I was born. Their neighbors and best friends raised me until I was 5. No blood relation, but I love them as if they were. Linda, that's a perfect example. And it's really funny because I feel like nowadays too, our family unit is evolving so much. I mean, there's so many weddings and divorces and different types of families and people moving and communities gathering. And whether it's through financial hardship, where families will kind of co-live together on one piece of property, or even I've had a lot of friends who are doing the co-parenting thing where they have two different couples helping to raise a set of children. And it really it's different and unique than what we've grown up with historically. But the beautiful part of this is it's actually how we began early on in different tribal communities. It's like the whole community helped raise children and help support each other. And so we kind of move through this arc of capitalism where everyone kind of, had their own home and their own things. And now it seems like we're being forced or encouraged to kind of support each other in different, deeper ways. So Mary Lou, my cousin right here, this is my blood cousin who I love very much. Mary Lou says, friends are family we choose for ourselves. Mary Lou, that's 100% accurate. I feel the same exact way. And Mary Lou is my cousin who I love very much too. So it's good to see you on here. Let's see here. So the other things I wanted to talk about, we can't change who we're related to, but we do have the right to choose our family. And I just mentioned this too. A lot of indigenous cultures had that process of adopting people into their families to help them and support them. And so it's really beautiful to see that type of attitude, that type of mindset being kind of moved through our communities nowadays too, because it is important. We may have a drive to do things on our own, but the reality is that life is tough. Life is a struggle. And it's a lot easier when you have friends and family that you can lean on and who can lean on you to help support you. And that brings us to the main part of this talk, which is different ways that we can support our family and friends and really kind of be there for them. And I wanted to share this because a lot of us are extremely supportive of one another, but there are certain mindsets and different beliefs that may have been ingrained in our history, in our patterns of growing up. And also, too, sometimes when those closest to us are going through something challenging, it's sometimes hard for us to really find the words to be able to support that person in the way that we want to support them. So I wanted to just write down a few different things that kind of inspired me and just share those with you. Kelly, good to see you, my friend. Kelly just popped down there too. So one of the things we can do is offer support instead of comfort. And again, this is just kind of a linguistic thing, but I want to define those two different topics because support and comfort are very different things. Support, or let me say, comfort implies a desire to free someone from their pain and make them feel less unhappy. Support implies a desire to provide assistance and help. So I'm sure most of you know this too. A lot of us in our group have suffered losses of our partners or family members. And that grieving process, we all grieve in our own way. And it's so unique. It's so long and evolved and so nuanced, the way that we grieve based off of the relationship we had with someone. So just keeping that in mind, sometimes I'll just share an example. When I was younger, when I was 21, is when my mom passed away. And in my circle of friends at that time, my mom was the first death that I think any of us really experienced. And it was something that I didn't really know how to handle. I didn't know how to manage that. And I don't think my friends really knew at that time either. And so we all kind of fumbled through this kind of grieving process together. And now, decades later, I'm still really good friends with most of those people who I was friends with at that time. And by now, it's like a lot of them have experienced that loss of their parents, unfortunately. But they have that new perspective after they've experienced it. And only until you go through a specific loss or trauma or tragedy or whatever, that's when you really are able to understand, again, that kind of nuance, the subtleties of how that loss impacts your life. So some of these notes that I wrote down, I just kind of wanted to call them out and just share them for people to give a different perspective. So talking again about this comfort versus support. As we grew up, we probably got really good at offering comfort for people because we don't want people to suffer. But when it comes to struggling things like death or a divorce or maybe changing your job or moving, those are all really traumatic events. And the reality is that our culture typically tends to avoid any of those really big emotional things and just kind of not talk about it. Funerals are a chance to honor the ones that we've lost. And it's really interesting how people become so awkward at funerals. And it's a really uncomfortable thing because some people want to be celebrated and some people want to mourn. And I've seen different funeral services like over in Italy where people are wailing hysterically as the coffin is being brought down the street. And it's like, it struck me as an American who we don't do that. It's like you don't display your emotions that openly. But when I look at it afterwards, it's like, you know what? They are actually expressing their grief in the most healthiest way. They're moving that grief through their body and not allowing it to be stuffed down and stifled down there. So it's just beautiful. It's something to look at. When you look at how different cultures around the world deal with different events. I don't even want to say tragedies or traumas, but just how they deal with different events. They all deal with them so uniquely, and it's beautiful to look at them and try to uptake the things that you really enjoy and try to incorporate that in your own life too. There's a ceremony in Mexico called the Day of the Dead, which I'm sure most of us have heard of. And it's fantastic. It's so beautiful the way they honor and celebrate the memory of their loved ones. There's a movie called Coco, which my sister Kelly, she just wrote, "Hey, brother." My sister over there and I, we were just talking about it a couple nights ago. If you haven't seen Coco, Coco is one of my favorite movies, and it will probably make you cry, but it's worth the cry. It's absolutely beautiful. So, all right, I'm getting off track here. So, let me get back to my list here that I wrote down of different things that you can do to help support those loved ones around you. So, again, we got really good at comforting people, trying to remove that pain from them so that they don't have to experience it. And sometimes we put in some words of optimism, right? We try to be hopeful, we try to be optimistic about that. And one of the things that's a good intention to have, but sometimes for the person who is suffering that loss, it may seem a little out of touch or it may minimize the gravity of what that person's suffering. So maybe keep that in mind as you're trying to comfort someone who is going through a tough time. It's like, yes, be optimistic, be hopeful, but also have that other foot firmly planted in reality and try to address, real things that you can do to help and support them. Being an active listener is one that is humongous. So many of us today, um, there's just so many things. There's social media, which we're talking on now. We have jobs, we have children, we have families, we have travel, we have responsibilities. And so we're constantly moving and being distracted. And those of us who use our cell phone, I mean, we know that all of us probably use it a little more than we would like to. And so when you're dealing with someone who's going through a struggle, it's really a beautiful opportunity to put your phone down and become an active listener. Look the person in the eye and really listen to what they're expressing and notice how that makes you feel. it's going to be really good to feel that from the other person. And the person that you're talking to is going to feel heard and seen and really respected. So that's something really important to do, be an active listener. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. So, thinking about what type of support is appropriate considering your relationship with this person. So, you may be talking to someone who's struggling at work. And so maybe, your relationship to someone at work is not as close as one of your best friends or a family member. And so just kind of think about, what type of support is appropriate for you to offer to help this person who's struggling in whichever way they are. What does my friend or family member need? So a lot of times when people are struggling, they they may talk about the thing that's causing them struggle, but they don't talk about what they actually need to feel better in that situation. So it may be a good reminder for us to say, how can I help you specifically? What's something that I can do to really help you heal or move forward through this process that you're doing and using my gifts, right? Like me, Greg, I'm an artist. I work with these traditional ceremonies. I have a certain life experience of seeing things around the world and losing my job, being a big design director, and then getting laid off and trying to reestablish myself and form that. So I have very specific experiences that when I listen to someone who's struggling, I may be able to tap into those experiences and offer something that's really unique from my perspective that not only will show that I'm listening to the person and trying to offer something from my loving heart to help them, but it also shows that the specialness in myself, and the specialness in each and every one of you, you have a unique gift. You have a unique story. You have something very precious that only you can share to help heal someone else too. So let's see here. A few people. Gilbert just wrote in, is it normal to feel uncomfortable when being an active listener? Gilbert, that is an awesome question. Thank you for sharing that. It is. And this is something it's a beautiful point that you brought up. It may feel uncomfortable for us to be quiet and to just listen because in our culture, we're so used to talking and really exchanging ideas and just, talking to each other. So it may feel uncomfortable. And I'll tell you something too. The way that I found out this about myself, Gilbert, is I was interviewing someone in New Orleans, a voodoo priestess, for the show that I did called Explore and Exhale. And when I was interviewing her, we both had microphones on, and it was both being recorded into the same camera. So one camera was recording both of our mics. And as she was speaking, I was going, uh-huh, yep, oh, hmm. And so during this interview, I kept hearing myself making all these random noises that I wish I could have just shut off. But what it showed me is how difficult it was for me to actually be quiet and just listen to this woman sharing her wisdom with me. So, yes, that is a definite thing that can happen. And what I would encourage you to do, Gilbert, is as you're in that situation and as you're actively listening, pay attention to your breath. So when you're breathing, when you feel called, this urge to say something or share something in the middle of this person speaking, it's like take your breath. Take that breath in exchange of saying something. And that may help you get regrounded and refocused so that you are actively listening to that person. Harold here says family can be and often is dragging us down. Friends are by choice. Some stay forever, some stay a while. Harold, that's a perfect example. And a lot of us, this is Pride Month here, so a lot of us in the LGBTQ plus community have had family members that maybe they don't feel as accepted in. And so out of a necessity, it's really important for those of us in that community to find fellow safe people that we can feel supported by and that we can feel loved by and accepted by. So that's another great topic, especially for this month being Pride Month. Let's see. So what does my friend or family member need? And this gets back to that question about asking them specifics. Do they need emotional support? Do they need logistical support? Maybe they have children that need to be picked up from school and they're dealing with something else. So maybe you could offer that type of support. Do they need financial support, or do they need, food to be cooked? Are there things that you can do for them that you can just drop off and support them in a way, again, that kind of focuses on your gifts and your skills? Now, that being said, there are a lot of things that we can do that are kind of, you can't go wrong with these things. One of them is just not encouraging, not forcing them to want to talk. So if someone is having a hard time, if they're struggling and you're there, and it's important to try to not force them to talk. If they need space or quiet, it's like let them have that. And it may be difficult for us to not take that personally. But it's an important thing. It's an important thing, especially with boundaries, that we can say, okay, my good friend here is struggling, and what they really probably need is just to go for a walk in the woods by themselves. So I'm gonna just step aside and not hound them or kind of badger them, and just really let them do what they need to do, and I'm not going to take it personally. And that may be tough, like Gilbert said. It may feel uncomfortable because we want to help those we love so much, but giving them that space can also help them just as powerfully. So provide concrete assistance, and this is something that's important. When you ask for specifics, specific needs from these people, whatever they're really needing, you can deliver that specifically to them. And so you can really kind of help them solve one of their problems or issues or needs that they're facing, and just do it for them. So get specifics. That's a really great thing that you can always apply to any situation. And then, of course, remembering that grief lasts for a very long time. If you're trying to support someone who has lost someone, um, or even lost a job, or again, a move, a divorce, all of these things, those four major things, they say are like some of the most stressful things that we can ever experience: the loss of a job, the moving of a home, the ending of a relationship, and the death of a loved one. So, one of those four things, it's like grief comes with that. And so, just know that when something happens, if we take death for example, if someone, a partner of someone dies, and then we're there supporting them, typically it all happens, and then the funeral happens, and then everyone kind of goes back to their daily life, and that person that is suffering kind of has everyone leave at once. And so something that's kind of nice to think about is remember that that grief kind of lasts a lot longer than that one instance that you've been there supporting them. And so maybe think about sending them something spontaneously, or just calling to check in on them, especially around different holidays, And I don't mean just like the major ones in the fall, but like Mother's Day and Father's Day, and all of those things. If their anniversary comes by, it's like that's a really good time to check on someone and just see how they're doing. So, Deborah, why do I feel selfish when I reach out for help with my loss? A lot of times it stops me from asking. Deborah, a lot of us feel that. And it's funny. I feel like for me, I just kind of went through a tough week last week, and I kind of snapped at my sister Kelly, my best friend over here. And luckily we were able to talk about it. And I was like, you know what? I definitely did not express that I was going through a struggling time. For some reason, I feel, and this is just myself, that I don't want to burden someone. I don't want to. There are other things going on that people need to focus on. They don't need to focus on the struggles that I have. It's like in my mind, I'm strong enough to take care of this. And that may be true, but the reality is that a lot of times it just gets heavy. And so we need that support. We need to talk to those that we love. That's why they're there. And it may be something, Deborah, we've talked about different issues. It may be a control thing about, not wanting to feel like I just said for myself, like I don't want to burden someone else, or, I don't want to take up that time that someone else may need to do something else. But it's important for all of us to remember that we are special and we are important, especially to those that love us and want to be with us. So reaching out to those people that are closest to us when we're struggling is honestly the biggest gift to our loved ones, because they want to be there for us. They want to be there and support us in any way that they can. So I hope that answers your question. It's a tough one, but I feel it too, and I know a lot of us feel it too. And it also comes down to the place where a lot of us just have a hard time expressing our emotions. And so we tend to do different things to avoid expressing those things and feeling them. So that may also kind of add on to that. And yeah, Kelly just wrote, some people don't know how to react to your problems. And that's a good thing, Kelly. And that was kind of what a lot of these topics were that I was thinking about today sharing. It was just like, what are some things that we can do? And it is that thing that a lot of us, maybe we don't know how to respond to someone who is suffering a major loss. And so just remember, there is always something that we can do. And even just being there for someone, just expressing how much we love them, is good enough in a lot of instances. So I want to thank you guys. If you have any other questions or comments, write them in here. This has been a great chance for me to catch up with you guys. I really missed you this past week. And thank you for writing in your questions and your feedback and your opinions too. So, remembering over the next couple of weeks, next week on Monday, we have the summer solstice. So, this is a huge event coming up for us. We did a big ceremony in the wintertime for the winter solstice, and I'm hoping to possibly do one for the summer solstice as well. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we'll be talking and interviewing with my sister, Kelly Rush, who is really excited to meet you guys. Those of you who have been watching for a while, you probably have heard her voice in my earlier videos reading me your questions, and so you'll get to meet her face to face next week. And I have some other friends, Finley over in Dundee, Scotland, who is going to talk about yoga and other life issues that he has gone through. And my other friend Daniel's in Germany, he's going to be talking to us. And I have a bunch of other people that are going to be coming through and sharing different pieces of wisdom that will hopefully impact your life in a beautiful way. So, once again, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your night, sweet dreams, and I'll see you next week.